As of 2024, you will find 45 different roller coasters that are located at the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens parks, which are now known as simply as the United Parks and Resorts. I know it's kind of blah and boring. Now, while we do not know what the future holds for these 8 parks, we do know that new roller coasters will be added in the coming years, and here are the perfect coasters that could be added to each of these parks. This is very intriguing. These parks are really solid parks. Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Busch Gardens Tampa, SeaWorld Orlando, SeaWorld Abu Dhabi. I'm really excited to share with you guys all these new coasters because SeaWorld Parks is not afraid to spend some money on coasters and break some records. And I know you're going to love what I have to say for each of these parks in regards to the coaster that makes the perfect sense for each of them. With all that being said, let's get right into this list, starting off with Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Now we know 2025 is going to be the brand new family B&M inverted coaster that features 2 lift hills and is rumored to be themed around the now defunct Big Bad Wolf. So very intriguing project out of Busch Gardens Williamsburg. And while there was a ton of rumors regarding a coaster over 300 feet tall, the Intamin shuttle coaster, all the way to the RMC hybrid hyper rumors, basically Iron Gwazi but larger. So now we just have this family inverted coaster, which it does look great, but obviously it's kind of disappointing because all the rumors were pointing to something much larger. So in my opinion, the perfect coaster for Busch Gardens Williamsburg would have to be that RMC Hyper Hybrid coaster. I just think it makes so much sense. Look at what Iron Gwazi has done for Busch Gardens Tampa and tell me it doesn't make sense. That would be a home run. Now the only issue that I could see this large of a coaster having at Busch Gardens Williamsburg would have to be the sight lines the park has and having this massive coaster loom above the rest of the park, which obviously this coaster would not be that much taller than Griffin, but I think it's more or less the giant support structure that would take place with this ride. But obviously they can always go truss lift with this, and if they do, I think it would look great. And the great news for Busch Gardens Williamsburg, even after they build the brand new Big Bad Wolf family coaster, the park has a lot of room left over to fit a ride just like Iron Gwazi. And I just think that this type of ride would do so many positives for Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Heading out west for Sesame Place San Diego. And while most of you might not be familiar with this park, it used to be called Aquatica. It was only a water park, but just recently they rebranded it as Sesame Place San Diego and added a new family coaster as well as some other flat rides to the park. And the good news for Southern California is I really feel as if this park will be getting a new coaster very soon. And the perfect coaster for this size of a park would be a family suspended coaster just like Dragonfly at Dollywood. I really feel as if that type of ride would do wonders for this park that's really trying to kind of transition from a water park to a dry park, and the attendance isn't that great yet, but getting a ride like that would do really well for the park because Vekoma has hit a home run with that ride model, and it's one train operation, which does not matter because again, this park does not draw a lot of people in. Now, regards to the other Sesame Place, which is located in Philadelphia, I really feel as if a compact B&M family inverted coaster would do really well for the park. Phoenix Rising over at Busch Gardens Tampa looks fantastic, and if Sesame Place Philadelphia would ever build a coaster just like this, it would do so well for the park because obviously they already have a nice sit-down family coaster and Oscar's Wacky Taxi, which is the Gravity Group family wooden coaster. So you have 2 coasters that are above the track. I really feel as if the next one, riders will be suspended in some way below the track. Now, if you're enjoying this video, all I ask that you do is please take 1 second to give the video a like. That is by far the best way you can help support my channel, and I really do appreciate each one. As for SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, again, some of you might not know much about this park, but it's brand new and it features 2 coasters, one indoors and one indoor and outdoors. And that one is Manta, a brand new Intamin LSM multi-launch coaster, and it looks phenomenal. So while this park is located indoors, it's kind of tricky to add a new coaster to it, but we've already seen this done at Ferrari World, which is located very close to this park. Now, as for the perfect coaster for this park, I would have to say a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner would do really well for this place because there's no other coaster like it around, so it's really good for marketability purposes and offers a unique ride experience that's going to be different from Manta, which is the launch coaster. So I really feel as if that would do really well for this park, and again, the world does need more Mock Extreme Spinners, so that's a win-win. Now this one's kind of crazy, but I love it. SeaWorld Orlando, and as we know, this park continues to add a new coaster every year or two, and that's a great thing. And the good news is, they still have a ton of room left for new coasters going forward. But in my opinion, the coaster that makes the most sense for this park would be one that you cannot find in Orlando or even Florida for that matter, and that would have to be a S&S Axis coaster. Now we do know that S&S is opening up 2 of these overseas. They're very small, and I believe the train goes around the layout twice to make the ride time even longer. But having a large scale S&S Axis coaster being located at SeaWorld Orlando would be rather bold, and I love it for the park because it would bring creativity and uniqueness where most of the rides at SeaWorld Orlando are pretty common, besides like Pipeline of course. So I really feel as if having a ride with that type of ride experience would do great for SeaWorld Orlando. Now that coaster all relies on if S&S can get their act together and create reliable coasters, because we all know what's happening up at Kennywood with Steel Curtain. So if they can fix their issues, then the S&S Axis coaster for SeaWorld Orlando, again, my opinion, would do great for the park. As for SeaWorld San Diego, this park has a height restriction, I believe around 150 to 160 feet, so the park cannot go much taller than that. But one thing that this park desperately lacks is really airtime. You might have a little bit on Manta or the Arctic Rescue, but that's really it. So having a airtime filled coaster such as a mini hypercoaster, whether it's from B&M, Mock Rides, or even Intamin, would do great for SeaWorld San Diego, and possibly could be the best coaster in California when it comes to airtime. And just like SeaWorld Orlando, SeaWorld San Diego offers a decent amount of room left to fit a coaster like this into the layout of the park, and I really feel as if a hypercoaster or a mini hyper would be the best bang for the buck for SeaWorld San Diego. Now raise your hand if you remember the Intamin shuttle coaster that was supposed to be opening at Busch Gardens Williamsburg a few years ago. It was like 365 feet tall, and the layout looked pretty sick, not gonna lie. Capacity was a concern, but sadly that coaster was never built. Now what became of that project, who knows, no one knows. But what if SeaWorld would shift that project from Busch Gardens Williamsburg down to SeaWorld San Antonio? And this would be a great move for the park because SeaWorld San Antonio has so much room, it's not even funny to expand, and they can easily market this as the tallest coaster in Texas. And you know what they say, everything is bigger in Texas. And with Six Flags Fiesta Texas located around 20 minutes away, and they cannot build a coaster over 200 feet tall, if SeaWorld San Antonio could build this coaster, that would be a huge win for the park and bring you and I to the park even more. Because it really is a solid park, they just need a standout coaster. And something like this is what I call a standout coaster. Heading to Tampa for Busch Gardens Tampa. And how does this park follow up Iron Gwazi? Because obviously Phoenix Rising isn't really a follow-up, because that's a family coaster, but I am very intrigued by what's to come for this park in 2025, 2026, because I do feel as if it's going to be rather large. And let's be real, the most impactful coaster that Busch Gardens Tampa could add would either be a hypercoaster or a Giga. And this park has the room, SeaWorld has the money, and as far as the height requirement goes, or the height restrictions, I mean, there's always ways around that if the city's willing to work with the park. Now, if they cannot go 300 feet, that's why I said hypercoaster, because either way, Busch Gardens Tampa desperately needs some good floating airtime, whether it's a Mock Rides hyper or even a B&M hyper. Something like that would just do so well for this park. And for me personally, of course I'm on Team Giga. I just think a Giga, I've said in past videos, a Giga would make the most sense for this park to rival what Universal's doing with Epic Universe. If Busch Gardens Tampa could open up this coaster in 2026, that would be a huge win for the park. I think 2025 is too soon for this magnitude of a project, but 2026 could still be done. Just imagine a hypercoaster that features tons of airtime hills and great views of Kumba, as well as the rest of the park and the Tampa skyline off in the distance. If Busch Gardens Tampa would build this type of coaster, I mean, they would have possibly a top 3, top 4 coaster lineup here in America. It would be close because Iron Gwazi is fantastic. And then you pair it with this, that's a great Batman and Robin if you ask me. So have you heard Top Thrill 2 is now testing at night, and here's my latest thoughts on when I think Top Thrill 2 will be reopening at Cedar Point. You can find the video at the bottom of your screen right here. Now tell me what you think the perfect coaster for each of the SeaWorld parks would be. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and of course, keep riding coasters.